Hello and Assalamu alaikum. I am Kashif Kamran and I welcome you to the Advanced Audit and Assurance Practice to Pass webinar being organized by ACCA Pakistan for March 2020 exams. And today is the fourth day of this Practice to Pass webinar. Now, over the previous 3 days, before I start on with the fourth day, the day one was focused on reading the mind of the examiner. The day two was focused on the risk of material misstatement, and the day three yesterday was focused on procedures and evidence. And the recordings of the previous 3 days are already available on the Vimeo ACCA Pakistan channel on vimeo.com. So if any one of you has missed the previous 3 days, you can still watch the recording. Now, the fourth day today is focused on ethical and professional issues. And just before I start on with the fourth day, the important housekeeping instruction is that during the course of the fourth day, you will be focused on the screen and you will be absorbing the practice. If you have any questions or you raise a question which is not answered, then you have a support of the WhatsApp group. You can drop the question on the WhatsApp group, and after the session is ended, I will have time to respond to your questions. So the WhatsApp group has been created just for an extra facilitation and an extra support so that your queries can be answered even after the webinar has been ended. Now, please ensure that you stick to the screen and you observe how a question on ethics and a professional issue is solved, including the quality control issue, so that you have a better idea how you should be going down with this topic in the exam paper. Now, the ethical and professional issues, which is the subject matter of the day 4, is a very important topic because again, it is a core syllabus area. And in a 100 marks paper, this is next to impossible to expect that there will be no question on this topic. There can be a reduction of marks or there can be an increment of marks. But this is such an important topic in exam paper, ethical and professional issues, even the quality control issues, right? So as a student, you should be well prepared on this topic. You should know the do's and don'ts of this topic so that you don't do the mistakes when you're writing the answer, when you're practicing at home, and when even you're doing the real exam in the first week of March. Now, over my previous days, particularly my day one, where I was telling you about reading the mind of the examiner, I have recommended you to read the examiner reports of the questions you are solving so that you have a better understanding of the criticism the examiner keep raising for a particular question. If you are attempting an ethics question, go and see the examiner report for it and see what the examiner liked and what the examiner disliked. I've been very consistent on using the red and the green marker when you are reading the examiner technique articles and when you're reading the examiner reports, and try to extract the do's and don'ts from the examiner reports and from the examiner technique articles. And I hope all of you are all of you have already started doing it. If you can give me an assurance on that as I proceed further by typing your answer in the chat box. I hope all of you have started to do that do's and don'ts analysis from the examiner reports and from the technique articles, and you're maintaining your summaries of the do's and don'ts on a topic by topic basis so that you exactly know where are you lacking. Because if you start to get the don'ts and if you are failing the AAA paper, then you probably getting the extra marks, and that will eventually help you get over the 50 marks barrier, right? So when you solve a question, when you read a question, please ensure at any point in time do read the examiner report, because examiner report will really open your mindset and will really tell you about the criticism which, if you are not repeating, will be very good for you. But if you're repeating the same criticism of the examiner in your exam sitting, then probably the result would remain the same. Now, for the session today, fourth day, I have chosen three questions which I will be going through. One is the question number 4 of the December 17 exams. Then the other one is question 3B of the September 18 exams. And the other one is the question 3B of the December 18 exams. Now, I'll be using these questions in scattered form just to give you a demonstration of how you pick an ethical issue, how you pick up a professional issue, and even how you pick up a quality control issue. And normally, students have a lot of misunderstanding, particularly around the professional issues and around the quality control issues. And I need to address that in clarity during my 3-hour session today. Then you have 2 home questions to do after the session ends today. You can practice question number 3 of June 18, and you can practice question number 2 of June 17. And you can also watch my previous webinars. I will be recommending you some of my previous webinars at the end of the day for today, so that you can watch them, and which will be better practice for you appearing for the March exams. Now, just first to start on with ethical and professional issues understanding, because that's been a consistent way I've been going into the each day, that I will not start on with the practice before I have given you the platform, or I've given you the structure of the topic. Now, let's first understand the structure of the topic, and let's first understand the expectations of the examiner around the topic ethical and professional issue. And once you realize the expectation, and once you realize what the topic expects from you, then solving an exam paper would be more easier. Now, first of all, as a student, there are so many things from ethics which you should be knowing before I come to professional. And I believe ethics is a much stronger area for the student, because that is an area which you must have studied a number of time in your ACCA qualification. And you must have studied that in your AA paper even. So you have a lot of sense, you have a lot of understanding about ethical issues. And I've mostly seen students that they're more clever in picking up an ethical issue from the case. And I hope I'm right in saying that. All of you are much more comfortable in picking up an ethical issue from a case study. For example, all of you are very much comfortable in picking up a self-review threat, or a self-interest threat, or a familiarity threat, or an advocacy threat, or an intimidation threat from a case study. Or all of you at least can pick up there is a confidentiality issue. So I personally believe that students are very good on the side of ethics. At least they can identify the ethical issue from within the case study. Is that the right perception? If you can drop your message in the chat box, that normally or generally the students are better in terms of the ethical issues, right? And they generally find answering a question on ethics easier. But the complex area is professional and quality control. Do you all agree with that? That you're more puzzled, or you face more challenges in the area of professional and quality control issue. And I personally believe that is where the stress level starts to go up. Your stress level goes up when you see the word quality control issue, or your stress level goes up when you see the word professional issue. So I'll be spending a better time on quality control and professional issues, and probably spend less time on ethics, because that's been an area where students are generally good at. So as a student, first of all, you should know the code of ethics. And I hope all of you know the code of ethics, right? All of you know the conflict of interest and the safeguards of conflict of interest. All of you know confidentiality, and all of you know when it can be whistleblown. In what circumstances you can whistleblow confidential information. All of you know the threats to objectivity, or you should know it, and the safeguards. Because when you're revising ethics, you should revise the conflict of interest. You should know the safeguards for conflict of interest. You should know confidentiality. You should know when the confidentiality can be whistleblown. You should know the threats to objectivity, and you should know the safeguards of the threats to objectivity. You should know the management threat and the safeguards. That's very important, because the AAA examiner, even in the article, mentioned that a student should have a sound idea about a management threat, and the student should know the safeguards for the management threat. So I'll just try to spend some time on the management threat, because that is a very important area. Rest is all the AA knowledge. Then as a AAA student, you should also know the difference between a listed company and a non-listed company, because the ethical issue in a listed company and the ethical issue in a non-listed company is dealt in a very different manner. So you should appreciate, or you should understand, the difference between a listed company and a non-listed company, because that is very, very important. So I'll be spending time on this element as well. And then the more important thing with the student lacks is that even though they identify a threat, even though they identify the threat, the journal lacking of the student is why it is a threat, explaining why it is a threat. So I'll be spending time on the last element as well. Now, can you see the three tick marks where I will be spending time on? First, to bring a clarity on a management threat and the safeguards. Second, to bring a clarity between a listed company and a non-listed company. And third, to bring a clarity on how you explain why it is a threat. Rest, I hope you know the threats to objectivity, you know the safeguards, you know the confidentiality, and you know the conflict of interest. Is that right to all of you? The last three bullets is the importance of the AAA paper, and the last three bullet makes the difference in the answer you're writing in the exam paper. So the first four bullets is your knowledge, which I believe all of you have, and you can go through the books. But the last three bullet is where the examiner tries to focus on in the article. So management threat, a listed company, and explaining why it is a threat. Now, if I just show you one very important thing prior to I proceed further, because the recommended article for the session today is the exam technique article part 4, which is on ethics. So if I just show you that article, which you have to read after the session ends today, the part 1 ethics exam technique article, which I have been recommending you over the last 3 days to read, even from the day one, right? So this is an exam technique article, and we're looking at the techniques relating to ethics. Now, this is such a wonderful article which guides you about what your examiner expects from you when you're writing an answer on ethics. Particularly, the examiner will focus on the listed and the non-listed company. The examiner will focus on the management threat, and the examiner will focus on the writing of the answer. So let's see, can we get all the three extractions from the examiner article? Now, firstly, when you go down, and you look at this paragraph on the page number 2, this paragraph is such an important paragraph for students. It says, you will be familiar with ACCA Code of Ethics from the Audit and Assurance exams. That's true. This mirrors the IESBA Code of Ethics, so you will be familiar with the 5 basic principles of integrity, objectivity, professional competence, and due care, confidentiality, and professional behavior. You will also be familiar with the journal areas of threat, to the fundamental principles of self-review, self-interest, advocacy, familiarity, and intimidation, right? So the first paragraph is basically your AA knowledge, and where the students are very good at. Is that true, the first paragraph? So whatever has been said in the first paragraph is more and less a very commandful area for students. Now, when you come to the second paragraph, it is a very, very important paragraph, the second one. And that is where you need to learn something from the second paragraph. The second paragraph here in the orange is very important. It says the situation you will be appraising at this level, at the level of the AAA paper, will usually involve an assessment of those principles within the scenario given in the question. So you will be appraising the knowledge you have from the AA paper in a context of a AAA exam. In addition, so the examiner is saying, apart from what knowledge you have from the AA exam, as a student in the AAA exam, in addition, so in addition means that's something extra you should know. You may be expected to identify situations where the auditor is at a risk of assuming a management responsibility. So the examiner is saying, apart from all what you know from the AA paper, you should know something extra. The extra is that you should know the situations where auditor is at a risk of assuming the management responsibility with respect to providing additional services to client. So from where will the management threat arise? With respect to providing additional services to client. Is everyone clear on that? So what is the source? What is the source of management threat? Or what is the source of assuming the management responsibility with respect to providing additional services to the audit client? Number two, or appreciate the difference between the listed company or the non-listed company when it comes to applying these principles, management threat, because there is a big difference between a management threat in a listed company, and there is a big difference between a management threat in a non-listed company. So one of the core parameter where you should be very good at is to understand the management threat, and then to understand that in the context of a management threat, there is a difference between a listed company and a non-listed company. So is everyone sound on that structure? So management threat will arise in the context of a non-audit service, right? And can we assume the management threat or can we not assume the management threat? That is very important. Okay, let's start an exercise on management threat. Now, if I use my Word file, which I've been using consistently over the last 3 days, and I use it for the day 4, where I just need to guide you something important, that apart from the AA knowledge on ethics, so ethics, number one, you have a carry forward effect in ethics, which is the AA paper. But what extra? The extra or the addition you should know for AAA. What is that? Number one, you should know the management threat. You should know to appreciate the difference between the listed and non-listed company, and you should know how to explain the threat as per examiner expectation. So these are the 3 areas where I will be working more rigorously over the next 30 minutes before I move towards the side of professional and quality control. Now, first, please make very clear what is a management threat. Now, when you look at the first element, which is basically known as a management threat, An examiner was saying that the management threat arises from providing additional services to the audit client. So management threat means assuming management responsibilities, right? When the auditor assumes the management responsibility. Auditor assumes the management responsibilities. Example, the auditor do activities which are primarily the responsibility, of the management. For example, the auditor starts to prepare the financial statement. Do you all know that preparing a financial statement is primarily the responsibility of the management? So in the exam paper, if the auditor is preparing the financial statement or any component of the financial statement, you will say, no, auditor is assuming the management responsibility. So there can be so many examples of primarily the responsibility of management, which you can assume on as being the auditor. So management is primarily responsible to prepare the financial statements, or management is primarily responsible to implement the internal control systems, implement the internal control systems. Management is responsible to prevent and detect fraud. So if the auditor assumes the responsibility of preventing the fraud or detecting the fraud, there might be that the auditor is assuming the management responsibility. So if all of you know what management responsibilities are, can you pick up in the exam paper that the auditor is assuming management responsibility, preparing financials, or even a component of financial, or even a component of financial? Implementing the controls, preventing and detecting the frauds, even recruiting staff is a management responsibility. Hiring staff. So if the auditor is engaged in recruitment services, if the auditor is engaged in hiring staff, that is also the management responsibility, right? So this is the definition. This is the definition, right? Management threat. Now you need to understand that there is a company known as a listed company versus there is a company known as a non-listed company. There is a big difference between assuming management responsibility in a listed company, and there is a big difference between assuming a management responsibility in a non-listed company. Now, if I just want to show you something very important from an Examiner article, there is an article which has a title Acceptance Decision for Audit and Assurance Engagement. If you can just note the title of this article, you can find this on the website of the articles for AAA. Just note the title of this article, Acceptance Decision for Audit and Assurance Engagement. You can download this article from the website. Yes, there can be so many examples, right, of management responsibilities. I just try to build up a list of 2 to 3. Yes, I agree. Even negotiating loans on behalf of the client is a management responsibility. Okay, if you have noted this title, Acceptance Decision for Audit and Assurance Engagement, in this article, if you go down, Okay, if you look at this paragraph, accepting non-audit assignments, which is basically from where the management threads arise. There's an important paragraph which I just want to highlight for your attention here, which is the paragraph number, yes, this paragraph in front of your screen, which is on the page number 2 of this article. And this is such an important paragraph here, this one. It says, obviously, these matters needs to be evaluated in the specific context of the potential engagement and should be fully documented. Different types of potential engagement will give rise to different matters that should be evaluated. For example, if a firm is asked to perform the audit of a large group of companies with operations in many countries, then resourcing the audit may be more significant. The fees may be large, leading to a self-interest threat on fee stipend. Suppose in the context of the exam, you are accepting an audit of a small company, or you are accepting an audit of a large group. Now, when you accept an audit of a large group, then self-interest may become very important. Or if you accept the audit of a small company, then the fees income may not be very large, right? So self-interest may not be very valid. So I hope you understand self-interest in comparison to a size of a business. Then it says, on the other hand, if asked to perform the audit of an owner-managed company, then fees dependence is less likely to be an issue, but the threats created by appearing to make management decisions could be significant. See what your examiner is telling you here. Read these lines in orange. It says, when asked to perform the audit of a small company, fees dependence is less likely to be an issue, but the threats created from appearing to make a management decision could be significant. So management threats can be more obvious in a small company because the management of a small company does not know how to do things. So they might ask auditor to prepare the financial statement. They might ask the auditor to implement the internal controls. But when you talk about a larger company, a listed company, they have proper departments, they have proper systems. So probably the significance of a management threat goes down. But assuming the management responsibility in a non-listed company or in a small company is more. Is everyone clear on that? If you can give me a quick answers to that. Assuming management responsibility in a small company is more, because a small company management is not competent, so they might ask the auditor to do so many work. So assuming management responsibility in a small company or in an owner managed company is more. So if I can just write there, listed company versus non-listed company, assuming management responsibilities in a small or in a owner managed company is allowed, is permissible, because they don't have competence. They can't do things, so they rely on the auditor. Can you do for us? So probably if a small company asks you, can you prepare my financial statements, you might not be amazed. But if a listed company asks you, can you prepare my financial statements, you will be more amazed. Is that true? If a listed company finance director asks you, can you prepare my financial statement, or if a small company asks you, can you prepare my financial statement, which is more shocking? Which is more shocking? A listed company asking you to prepare a financial statement, or a small company asking you to prepare a financial statement? Listed. So the code of conduct says, assuming management responsibilities in a listed company is prohibited. Assuming management responsibilities in a listed company is prohibited, but they are allowed in a small company, but they are prohibited in a listed company. But they, in a small company, in an owner managed company, they are permissible, they are allowed. Is that clear to all of you? So management responsibility, what is it? Can you assume management responsibility? Yes. If the company is non-listed, if the company is small, if the company is owner managed. Can you assume management responsibility in a listed company? Give me answers. Can you assume management responsibilities in a listed company? No. Why? Because a listed company has a public interest. And any company which has a public interest, you need to be more careful. You need to be more careful. You need to be more independent. So do you believe the auditor should be more independent when he's conducting the audit of a listed company? The auditor needs to exercise more objectivity when the auditor is conducting audit of a listed company. But for a small company, for a family business, for an owner managed company, your independence level can be lesser even. So the very simple rule of thumb is that everything is permissible in a small company. But when you come to companies like listed, there is a big problem. Okay, now understand one last thing, and I'm moving towards the exercise. So management threat, one. Now second, you should appreciate between a listed company and you should appreciate difference between a non-listed company from the view of writing the safeguards. Now we know whenever there is an ethical issue, in the case of a non-listed company, everything in a non-listed company is permissible. There is no issue. Everything in a non-listed company is permissible, plus you need to apply safeguards. Nothing is prohibited, right? Nothing is prohibited if it is a non-listed company, right? But when you look at the ethical issues in a listed company, now there are two things. In a listed company, there are some things which are prohibited by default, by the code of conduct, by the code of conduct. So the code of conduct says, no, you cannot provide this service to a listed company. Or in the case of the listed companies, some services are permissible, plus you need to apply safeguard. Now, some services are prohibited by default, right? Some services are prohibited if they are material only by the code of conduct. So I hope you all should know the book and you have read the book, because if you have not read the book, you will not know the list of the services which are allowed. You will not know the list of the services which are disallowed. And it is very, very important for all of you to revise the list of the services which are allowed and disallowed in the case of a listed company. Because for a non-listed company, there is no problem, right? But for a listed company, you should know what services are prohibited by default, what services are prohibited if they are material, and what services are prohibited, what services are permissible. So you need to revise this topic from the BPP book or the Kaplan book, whichever you are using. But this is not an area where you can take a risk and go to the exam hall. I hope all of you know that there is a list of services which is allowed and there is a list of services which is disallowed. Is that clear to all of you? So you need to spend time on the ethics topic from the textbook apart from reading the examiner article. And I have given you the three segregations, right? Try to develop your notes around the three segregations. You should know what is prohibited by default. You should know what is prohibited if they are material, and you should know what is permissible. I'm just giving you one example and then taking the break. Okay, just understand one thing. Take an example. Listed company. the client requested you to prepare the financial statements. Now, the code of conduct says this is prohibited by default. The listed company, right? I'm talking about listed company. Please remember that. So if the listed company requests you, can you prepare my financial statement? So this is prohibited by default because this is such a significant threat, prohibited by default. Now, if the client requests you, can you perform some valuation services like an actuarial valuation services, or can you perform something like a valuation services of the assets, a valuation services? Now the code of conduct says you need to consider that you can perform the valuation services if material they are prohibited, and if immaterial they are allowed with safeguards. I hope you've seen even the examiner gives you numbers in an ethics question when the company is listed. So you can find the materiality. If something is material, then obviously for a listed company, it will become prohibited. But if something is immaterial, it will become allowed, right? So I've only recommended reading the textbook in one syllabus area since my 4 days, right? So that is the only recommended area I'm saying to read the books, which is the ethics, because ethics is an area where you should be very clear on. Is everyone clear with the example 1 and example 2? And if you find numbers in an ethics question, please find materiality. Please find materiality, and when the company is listed, because the materiality will guide you whether the service is allowed or the service is disallowed. Is that clear to all of you? Can you just drop your messages, your messages in the chat box? Is that clear? Okay, the last example. The client asked you to review the internal controls. The client has asked you to review the internal controls. Now we know if you're reviewing the internal controls, it might become a self-review threat later. But the code of conduct says if the control relates to financial reporting, if the control relates to financial reporting, then it is prohibited because it's material, because it connects with the financial statement. And if the control relates to non-financial reporting, like the journal controls of the company, the journal controls of the organization, then this is allowed with safeguards. So if you are reviewing the internal controls over the financial statement, then that will become a very severe self-review threat. And because it will become a very severe self-review threat for a listed company, so the code of conduct says, no, this is prohibited. So please go through the textbook and make a list of the services which are prohibited by default for a listed company, services which are prohibited if they are material for a listed company, and services which are permissible. For a non-listed company, for a small company, for an owner-managed company, everything is allowed with safeguards. Is that clear to all of you? Management threat is clear to all of you? Is everyone clear that when you assume management responsibility, you are at the risk of management threat, right? Now, just the coverage, I've covered all the three things now because after the break, I will directly start with explain the threat as per examiner expectation. That means right after the break, I'll start with a case study and I'll tell you how you write an answer for ethics, because then I need to spend time on professional issues and quality control issues. So once you have knowledge from the textbook, see, where are you getting the knowledge for ethics? Let's make a final list. From where will you get the knowledge for ethics? Number one, the examiner article, exam technique article part 1. Second, acceptance decision for audit and non-audit services, and then the chapter from the textbook. So once you get the knowledge, you apply this knowledge to the case study. You apply this to the case. Now, how you solve the case, that is the next step, which I'll give you after the break. Yes, any book you are reading, whether it is BPP, it's a wonderful book. You're reading Kaplan book, it's a wonderful book. You have some summaries, notes of any tutor, that's wonderful, right? Because as a student, you should have some resources. Either you have a notes of a tutor, or you have a book, a Kaplan book, or a textbook, whatever. But is everyone sound on where you will get the knowledge of ethics? 2 articles and 1 chapter of the book. And then after that, you start to apply the knowledge to the case study. Now, how you solve a case, how you write a case, how you write an answer for ethics, and how many marks will you get, that is what I will be drilling after the break. And then I'll shift my focus towards professional issues and quality control issues. Now I'm going on to a break for 10 minutes. And I just need a quick feedback for the first 40 minutes. That has the first 40 minutes really helped you in terms of understanding this topic? And has the first 40 minutes really brought a clarity towards your focus to the exam? Uh, Simran, is it you are asking? Is it necessary to read all the ISAs? Obviously, you cannot read all the ISAs. Everything is given in the textbook. The AAA paper does not require you to read all the ISAs, right? But you need to go through the content given in the textbook if you are appearing for the AAA exams for the first time, right? I hope everyone is sound on the knowledge. Um, One last answer, right? Megna is asking, what is the difference between whistleblowing and tipping off? Whistleblowing means to disclose something, and tipping off means to conceal something. They're just the vice versa. If I whistleblow means I'm telling something. If I tip off means I'm concealing something. So if there is a money laundering in the company and I fail to inform money laundering to anyone else, then I'm tipping off. I'm concealing the money laundering. So tipping off is concealment, which is very unethical, which is a criminal offense. You cannot tip off, you cannot conceal bad information about the client. But whistleblowing means you are informing money laundering to someone. Is that clear, Meghna? And is that clear, Simran? I just tried to answer these two questions because they were very repetitive questions during the last 40 minutes. Okay, I hope you had a productive time in the first 40 minutes. I'm going off to a break, and then we have a lot of practice coming up, which will clarify you in terms of this topic. Okay, let's put that down here so that all of you have in clarity that we are on a 10 minutes break, and post break we'll start the exercise. So please do join live, because that's the more important thing, to know how you answer a question. So it's like 6:45. So I'll be back at 6:55 p.m. the Pakistan Standard Time in 10 minutes, right? And resume back with the answering of the question. And please keep dropping your feedback of the session so far. Hello and assalamu alaikum and welcome back to the day 4 where we are doing practice for ethical and professional issues. We were on a break for 10 minutes and prior to the break I was discussing with you the ethical issues and particularly uh, emphasizing on the management threat and the safeguards, listed company and a non-listed company. And now I need to start on with a case study with all of you, looking at how you basically explain a threat. Now, just prior to the break, I was very focused on the knowledge. The knowledge will come from the two articles which I have already recommended in the session, plus the textbook chapter. So for ethics, at least please do read a textbook chapter because that will be really good to know the services which are permissible for a listed company and the services which are prohibited. Now, just to start on with the exercise, and I'll be taking in account of the December 17 paper first. Try to understand one type of a question which comes on the in the exam paper. Right, I'm first starting on with the December 17 exam paper, and I need to illustrate that as a important question to understand so many things. December 2017, question number 4, right? That will be the first question we are doing in the session today. Now, if I show you the question, which is now in front of your screen, it has a requirement which says comment on the ethical and professional issues raised. Recommend any actions that should be taken. Recommend any actions that should be taken. Now we have three situations, one of ASP company, one of Viper company, and one of Adder company. ASP has 7 marks, Viper has 7 marks, Adder has 6 marks. And the examiner is saying comment on the ethical and professional issues and recommend actions which should be taken. So we have to work on two things, right? We have to work on issues raised and we have to work on actions. Now the marking scheme of such question is very simple. For every issue raised, you will get 1 mark per issue, 1 mark per issue. And for every action you recommend, for every action, you will be getting 1 mark. 1 mark per action and 1 mark per issue. Now try to understand one thing in an important context. When you start reading the case about ASP or Viper or Adder, because this requirement which has been given down is a consolidated requirement. And a lot of time the student misunderstood this requirement that you need to comment on the ethical and professional issues raised. And you start to read the requirement here, ASP, Viper, Adder. And so many students believe that in ASP, Viper, and Adder, I will find both the issues. I will find the ethical issues and I will find the professional issues. When the requirement has been given as a consolidated requirement for all the three companies, not necessarily that in the case of every company, you find both the problems. The examiner is saying ethical and professional issues raised. What if the examiner is only raising ethical issues in ASP and there is no professional issue? Are you understanding that? What if the examiner is only raising professional issues in Viper and no ethical issues? They can be both. They can be one because it depends upon the examiner. Examiner is saying, comment on the ethical and professional issues raised. Now you start to read ASP, and for example, you don't find any professional issues in ASP. You should not be nervous because the examiner didn't put any professional issue when the examiner was making a case on ASP. But when you come to Viper, you might find both of them, right? Is that clear to all of you? If I can see your responses in yes and no. Right? So a lot of time the student have this mindset that they try to force both. You need to read a case and you need to find the issues. You might find one, you might find two. You might find ethical, you might find professional. But what if you find ethical and you don't find professional? That means the case study don't have any professional issues. But you cannot just force the identification of the professional issue when it is absent, or you cannot just force the identification of an ethical issue when it is absent. Is that clear? So the requirement has been given for all three, right? But that does not mean that all three of them has both the ethical issues and the professional issues. Now it is up to the examiner how he raise the issues in ASP. It is up to the examiner how he raise issues in Viper. It is up to the examiner how he raise issues in ADA. So are we finding both of them forcefully in three? Yes or no? Are we finding forcefully both of them in all three of them? Are we finding forcefully the ethical and professional issues in both? Or are we just reading the case to see what issues have been raised? What issues have been raised, right? Okay, let's do one exercise and then come down to it. Examiner is saying, comment on the ethical and professional issues raised, right? That's what the examiner is asking. Now try to just understand one thing. When the examiner says issues raised, what you have to do for issues raised, you have to read the case of ASP, you have to read the case of Viper, you have to read the case of ADA. And when you are looking at the issues raised, your focal point is on an issue. Now, there could be a possibility that when you start to read ASP, the ASP, for example, only have the ethical issues and no professional issues. Is that can be a possibility? You start to read Viper, and in Viper you find the professional issue as well as the ethical issue. Right? So you need to understand that when you are solving a question on ethical and professional issues, it is not necessarily that you just find both of them in one case study, right? So the focal point has to be the issues. Is that clear? Now let's do one exercise on it, right? Issues raised. Now, when you start looking at the issues raised, You need to assure that every issue you are raising is worth 1 mark. Every issue raised is equal to 1 mark. Right? So it is very, very important that you first read the case study. And when you're reading the case study, you should assure that you are identifying the issues in the case study, irrespective they are ethical issues or professional issues. Right now, the problem of concern is that you need to read the case with me in the session, and then I will show you how you really extract the answer. Okay, hello. This is Kashif Kamran, right? There is some technical issue which we are working on, and I will be back live in 2 to 3 minutes, right? So just take a break for 2 to 3 minutes and back live into the session due to some technical issues. Okay, welcome back to the live session. There was some technical issue for that reason. So apologies for that 5 minutes. I hope all of you can see the screen now. And we were in the middle of a question, December 17, question number 4. So I am resuming that right from the start, December 17, question number 4. Right. I hope all of you can now hear me and the screen in front of you is now workable. Just respond to that as quickly as possible. Okay. Now we were discussing the December 17 question, number 4. I hope you remember that we were focusing on that when a question asks you ethical and professional issues, not necessarily that in each of the scenario you have both issues present. Till that point, is everyone okay and clear? So is it necessarily that we find ethical and professional issues in ASP? There might be one of them and there might be two of them. So you just need to read the case study in very perfection, right? And you need to identify whether both the issues are present or only one is present. Because a lot of time the student find one issue and they keep searching for the second when the second is not available. Is that loud and clear to all of you? So we are just focused on reading the case. If the case has both the issues, you will easily extract it. But if the case has one issue, then that means the examiner has made the case only on one issue, right? So no need to find both. If both are present, then you will find them with so much ease. Otherwise, be assured in exam that there is only one issue, right? So I was just extracting this on my Word file when the video got stuck. So I hope you can see that extraction. I've circled issues raised and I've linked the issues raised with the case study. And with the case study, I have linked ASP, Viper, and ADA. And I was just giving an example that only what if only ASP has ethical issues, then you will not be worried about the professional issues, right? And 1 mark per issue and one action is worth 1 mark per action and issues raised are 1 mark per issue. Now just make a definition quickly of what is a professional issue before we start reading the case study. Now you all know what is ethics, right? Now you need to understand what is basically a professional issue. So just to solve a good case study, let's be very good on the definition of a professional issue. What really professional issues mean? Because many students have very different definitions of a professional issue, and we want to make a very clear definition of what is a professional issue. Note this definition down in perfection. Now, when you speak of a professional issue in the exam paper, you need to identify from the case an issue which relates to how the audit work has been performed, which relates to how the audit work has been performed. Explain why the work performed is wrong, why the work performed is wrong, and the impact it will have on audit. See, that's the first definition. Identify from the case an issue which relates to how the audit work has been performed, which relates to how the audit work has been performed. Explain why the work performed is wrong and the impact it will have on the audit. For example, you read a case study and you come across an example which says the audit started without planning. Now you will say, no, this is something wrong. And if the audit has started without planning, what will be the impact of this on the audit? Right? If someone is still seeing a blank screen, you need to exit from the webinar and enter again, because now the screen is perfectly clear for all of you, right? So if anyone is having an isolated problem, you need to exit from the webinar and then join the webinar again. I hope everyone is sound on screen and voice. Okay, so audit started without planning. Do you all believe this is not the way the audit should be performed? And will you be capable of explaining this is wrong and the impact it will have on the audit? Second example, how the audit work has been performed. The junior performed work, the junior performed work on the going concern assumption. The junior performed work on the going concern assumption. And you will say, no, junior is not a capable person to perform work on the going concern because going concern is a subjective area, right? And being a subjective area, uh, he must not have performed a good work. And that means that you have compromised the sufficient appropriate audit evidence. So are you understanding the first definition of a professional issue? Identify from the case an issue which relates to how the audit work has been performed and explain why the work performed is wrong and the impact it will have on the audit, right? Next, the second definition. Identify from the case an issue which relates to issues like client integrity, issues like client integrity, issues like client behavior, issues like client integrity, issues like client behavior, issues like negligence of the auditor, or issues like the liability of an auditor, etc. You must have seen in the past paper that there are so many issues in the case relating to integrity of the client. Sometimes the client is not behaving in a proper manner, or sometimes the client is concealing something from the auditor, or sometimes the response of the client is not very good towards the auditor. So whenever you see some client integrity issues, the auditor needs to be skeptical around those client integrity issues. If the auditor is not skeptical, then that will raise a professional issue for auditor. So if there is a client integrity problem, then the auditor should be skeptical. If he's not, why a client integrity will be a professional issue for the auditor? Because when there is a client integrity issue, you need to understand the response of the auditor. Is it valid or is it invalid? What if there is a client integrity issue and the audit firm continues with the engagement? Is that the right response? Do you all agree with that response? If there is a client integrity issue and you continue to perform services, should not we step down as an auditor when there is a client integrity issue? So when there is a client related problem, you need to see as an auditor, what should I do? Have I done the right thing? Have I done the wrong thing? So are you understanding how the client integrity connects to a professional issue? Because client integrity is a client problem, but do you believe client integrity connects with the audit firm? Do you believe the client integrity has a connection with the audit response? And do you believe client integrity has an impact on the future of the audit? Do you believe if there is a client integrity issue, then we have to increase our risk assessment? We have to increase the sample size? So you need to connect the issue with the audit firm. So client integrity is not a client problem, right? Client integrity connects with the audit firm. If you think the auditor has given a wrong conclusion of the auditor, if you think the auditor has performed work in a rush, or if you think the auditor has done something in haste, will that give rise to the negligence of the auditor? So anything in the case study which gives rise to the negligence of the auditor, which can give rise to the liability of the auditor, is another professional issue. So many instances in the past paper where the audit has done a negligent work. When the auditor has done a negligent work, the negligence is a professional issue. True? Yes? No? Do you all believe negligence of the auditor is a professional issue? And negligence give rise to the liability, right? Whether the and the liability of the auditor, right? And the client integrity. So if there is a client integrity issue in the case study, you need to see whether the response of the auditor against the client integrity was valid. And if the auditor has taken a valid response, that's good. But if the auditor has not taken a valid response against client integrity, then again, that will become an issue for the audit firm. So whether it is auditor or audit firm is one of the same thing, right? It could be a single person, it could be a firm, right? Is that clear with professional issues? So identify an issue from a case which you believe has a connection with the audit work, and then try to explain what is wrong in the work and the impact it will have on the audit. Can you see this first definition I wrote? This is the most constructive definition. Is that definition clear to all of you? Because I'm starting on with a case study. So any issue which you think connects with the work performed by the auditor and you believe that work is wrong, then you have to tell examiner why it is wrong and the impact it will have on the audit. So the issue can relate to planning, the issue can relate to risk assessment, the issue can relate to sufficient appropriate audit evidence, the issue can relate to a review of the work. Right now, just be isolated on quality. I'm not touching quality till the time I bring quality. So just focus on professional issues currently, because again, another problem with student is they just try to mix things up. I've done ethics with you. Now I am focusing on professional, and we're not yet focused on quality. When I focus on quality, then I'll tell you how quality connects. So just for next half an hour, don't be focused on quality, just be focused on a professional issue. Is everyone sound on finding a professional issue? So ethical issues, the one you know from the F8 paper, right? And the professional issues, the one which relates with the work performed, right? So let's start an exercise now. So ethical issues, that is what you know from the AA paper, and then comes down the professional issues, which relates down with work performed by audit firm, or a professional issue which relates within the process of the audit, issues within the process of audit, So an issue in the work performed by the audit firm, that means something is wrong, something wrong in the work performed, or there is an issue within the process of the audit. For example, you accepted a client in haste. Can we accept a client in haste? Is that the right process of the audit? Right. So a professional issue can be something wrong in the work performed. A professional issue can be something wrong in the process of the audit. And all of you know the process of the audit, right? Acceptance, planning, procedures, review, reporting. All of you know the process of the audit, right? So if there is any mistake in the process of the audit, you will identify that as a professional issue. And the ethical issue is the one which you identify from the code of ethics you do in the AA paper. Okay, now let's do one exercise because I need to focus on the quality control as well. Okay, let's see, have you got my lecture in the right direction? Okay, I'm now reading ASP. Right, watch ASP, right? And we need to identify the ethical and professional issues while we are reading ASP. We have 7 marks, so 1 mark per issue and 1 mark per action. Let's start to drill the exercise on ASP. Okay, now when you read ASP, it says, you are a senior manager at Cobra and Company, a firm of chartered certified accountant. You are responsible for reviewing the quality control and ethical matters which arise with the firm portfolio of client. During recent investigations, you identify the following matters. ASP Company. ASP Company currently qualifies as a small company. So that's not an issue. It's a small company. So we know for small company, everything is permissible. In the jurisdiction in which it operates, with a turnover of $7.5 million. So it's a small company, right? And as such is not required by the law to have audit. So because it was a small company, so as such, it was not required by the law to have an audit. And we know for small companies, we have no issues. Had it been a listed company, then the issues would have become burning. Now let's see what are problems with this small company. So far, it's just the introduction. Until recently, your firm has provided a range of non-audit services to us, including bookkeeping, payroll, and tax computation and advice. You were not providing audit of ASP, right? Why? Because it was a small company. But you were providing other services to ASP, like bookkeeping, like payroll services, like tax computation services, and advices. So far, there is no issue because it is a small company and you were not providing audit. Had you been providing the audit with bookkeeping, it would have become a self-review thread. True or false? Had you been providing the audit and you were doing the bookkeeping, then it would have become a self-review, right? So currently, are we doing audit or we are not doing audit? So far in the case study, are we doing audit or we are not doing audit? We are not doing audit, right? So that means bookkeeping, payroll, tax computation is not giving rise to a self-review threat, right? But if we do audit, then bookkeeping will be a self-review threat, payroll will be a self-review threat, tax computation will be a self-review threat, right? And the advice will become the advocacy threat. But currently we're not doing the audit. Currently we're not doing the audit, so no, there is no issues, right? There is no issues at all. The problem comes when you start to do the audit. So the company recently obtained an offer for a significant amount of finance to help the company grow. So you want to grow your company, so you recently obtain an offer for a significant amount of finance. The management of AS has ambitious plan for growth, which they believe will result in revenue doubling within 1 year. So it will become a good company and then continuing to grow at a very similar rate for at least the next 5 years. So that means the company has a very ambitious plan to become a big company in the next 5 years. Currently, it's a small company, and for that, they need a loan. In order to secure the funding, now comes the problem. In order to secure the funding, the directors have decided to have the financial statements audited and has asked if Cobra and Company will become the company's auditor as well as continue to provide the existing services. Now, can you understand? If you become the auditor of Cobra now, or sorry, if you become the auditor of ASP now, and you continue to provide the services you were providing, do you believe it will give rise to a self-review threat now? Agree? I just need quick answers from you because this is now an interactive phase of my session. So because the client now wants you to perform the audit with the services you were already providing, so will it give rise to the self-review threat? Will it also give rise to a management threat? Because you're doing lots of things which the management should have been doing, like bookkeeping, like payroll. So do you believe there is a management threat even? But do you believe it's a small company? We can take safeguards for self-review. We can take safeguards for self-review, right? Because it's a small company, can we take on the management responsibilities? Is that right? It's a small company. Can we take on the management responsibilities? Yes. So first we need to write an issue, then we need to write an action. A lot of times the student thinks about the action first and they don't write the issue. Please, in the exam, write an issue first, even though after you take an action, it is no more an issue. So issue with an action. This will include auditing the financial statements for the year ending to 31st of July at the request of the new financer. So the new financer wants to have an audit unless and until the new financer will not give you the loan. Do you believe the new financer is a intended user of the audited financial statement? Yes or no? So do you believe the intended financer is basically the one who wants the audited financial statement? So do we have liability towards the intended financer if the audit is not done in a proper manner? Can the new financer raise some concerns on the way the audit has been performed? So because he's the one to rely, right? He's the one to rely. So can he file a case against me in future if there is any negligence? So should I be more skeptical when I'm conducting the audit because I know there is a financer who will be using my financial statements? So do you believe the liability of the auditor will rise here? Because apart from the company, the financer will also be using the financial statement. So do I need to be more skeptical when I'm performing the audit? So is that something which relates to my work? Is that something which relates to my work? So is that a category of a professional issue? If I'm not skeptical, there might be negligence on me, right? If I am skeptical, then there will be no negligence. So do you believe negligence can become a parameter of concern in this case if the audit has not been done in the right way? Right now, let's see how you plan a 7 marks answer. Okay, now just to bring you a clarity, this question is from December 17, right? And at that point, the marking scheme used to be 1.5. So there is not many points in the case to make 7 marks. But now the marking scheme is 1 mark. So I am solving it on 1 mark. But at the point December 17 question was raised, the marking scheme was 1.5 marks, right? So at I think as per 1.5 marks, you can make up your 7 marks, but as per 1, you might not be. But I'm solving it on 1 mark to see where are we reaching as company. And we have 7 marks to write for ASP. Actions and issues. Issues, actions. No categories of issues, right? No categories of ethical and professional issues. You just need to tell an issue and why. Issue and why. Issue plus why is equal to 1 mark. Number 1, a self-review threat. We identified that as the first issue, right? The self-review threat, because we will be offering audit with other services. So audit with other services will give rise to self-review threat. Number 2, uh, can we offer audit with other services? Yes, it's permissible because it's a small company. It's permissible because it is a small company. However, we should have different teams. We should have different teams for audit and different teams for other services. 2 actions, right? First action, I'm saying it's permissible to offer audit with so many services, and I should have different teams for audit and other services. So 2 marks. Self-review threat, because I'm offering my audit with so many other services, so it will give rise to a self-review threat, 1 mark. Then the next issue, management threat, because I am assuming management responsibilities, responsibilities. I'm assuming management responsibilities like bookkeeping, like payroll, etc. These are all management responsibilities, so I'm assuming the management responsibilities even advice. Action permissible in a small company, the auditor can assume management responsibilities. In a small company, the auditor can assume management responsibilities. I'm making a sketch answer, right? Just to make my marks. I will tell you how to write it. This is just a planning. Every time the emphasizable point is planning. You need to plan first, right after. Okay, another problem we got was the intended user, the financer, the financer relying on audited financial statements, and there could be a greater exposure to liability, a greater exposure to liability, need to exercise due care. I need to exercise due care. I need to be more skeptical because I know my financial statements, my audited financial statements will be relied upon by a financer. So do you believe financer gives rise to my liability and the exposure to liability becomes my professional issue, but I need to exercise due care to reduce my liability? That becomes my action. I already plotted 7 marks in front of you. I have 3 issues. I have 4 actions. And that's making my list going up to 7. Now in the exam, how would you present the answer? This is just a planning. How to present the answer. Now when you're presenting the answer, this is how you're presenting it. I will first put the heading as company. Under the as company, I will first put the heading self-review threat. Now, this is the way you can solve your answer. Examiner do prefer that you can use headings of threats, but you cannot put headings like ethical issues, professional issues. That is not the good practice because then you will be bifurcating the issues. But can you use the headings as a threat? Yes, self-review threat, and you explain under. When you explain under the self-review threat, you say providing audit to ASP will give rise to self-review threat because the audit firm is already providing bookkeeping, payroll, and tax services, all of which are component all of which are component of the financial statements. Therefore, the auditor, therefore, the audit firm will be reluctant to identify issues in their own work, in their own work. Now, there is a big problem with students. Examiner says if you just identify a threat, for example, you say providing audit to ASP will give rise to a self-review threat, and you stop here, you will not get marks because examiner says you need to justify why it is a self-review threat. See, did I put an emphasis on justifying examiner why a self-review threat? Look at my line from because to end. See this paragraph. I just spent time on explaining examiner why it is a self-review threat because audit firm is already providing the bookkeeping services or the payroll services or the tax services, all of which are component of the financial statement. So when I start to do the audit, do you believe I will be reluctant to review my own work? Will I be finding mistakes in my tax services? Will I be finding mistakes in the payroll services? No. And they're all components of the financial statement. So do you believe I will be skeptical when I'm conducting the audit for this reason? So examiner says self-review threat arise when there is a reluctance. Reluctance causes the self-review threat. Please remember that, right? Reluctance causes the self-review threat. Now this paragraph will give me 1 mark. So you need to write the self-review threat as the first one. Uh, After that, it's totally up to you. You want to write the action immediately after. So once you write an issue, you can write the action, or you can write the action later. So self-review thread, and after the change of the paragraph, you can say, being a small company, the audit firm can provide audit with other services, provided they can provide audit with other services as it is permissible. 1 mark. However, the audit firm should have different teams. Audit firm should have a different teams and a second partner review for audit and non-audit services. Another 1 mark. So the presentation is up to you. This is also a very good presentation, that you write an issue followed by an action. But I'm not giving the paragraph heading action. But obviously the assessor, when checking the paper, will automatically pick that you're writing the action. And can you present the answer this way, that you say, okay, self-review thread, and you put the heading action? That is also fine. Now, it's totally up to you that you want to present issues first and actions after, or you want to present the issue and the action together. So everyone takes your own decision. You write an issue followed by an action, one way, or you write all issues first and then write actions. So can you decide your own way of presenting answer? Can I get answers for that? One issue followed by action, or write all issues first, then write actions. But you should do the planning first. Is planning important? Did planning really help us to write a good answer? Did planning really help us to write a good answer? Please keep responding to my questions, because that's very important for an interaction to happen. So do you believe the planning of the 7 marks was really, really beneficial to convert the answer which is now on your screen? Right, so what's the rule of thumb? Okay, let me draft one more issue for you, which is basically intended user, because that's a professional issue, right? So I'll put the next heading, intended user. See how am I using headings? Intended user become my heading. The audited financial statements will be relied upon by the financer to issue a bank loan. That means the audit firm is at a greater exposure to professional liability, and the bank can make audit firm liable for any negligence detected later. 1 mark. See, I'm not dragging my answer. 1 mark, and then you tell the action. Thus, the audit firm needs to exercise more due care when performing audit of as company to reduce their exposure to liability. 1 mark. See, am I saying Am I saying intended user is a professional issue? Am I saying that? Can you see, have I used the word professional anywhere in my answer? Have I used the word ethical anywhere in my answer? Did I tell examiner the audited financial statement will be relied upon by the financer to issue a bank loan? This is a professional issue. I was just concerned telling examiner why it is an issue. So see this, how much time I spent telling examiner why it is an issue? See my answer for self-review. How much time I spent telling examiner why it is an issue? Is everyone getting what is the importance? The importance is that this is the importance that you first need to read case. From the case, you need to extract from the case, you need to extract points. From the case, you need to extract points. From the points, from the points you have extracted, make an answer plan first. Make an answer plan. Make an answer plan. Once you made the answer plan, once you make the answer plan, you need to convert the answer plan into your proper answer. Into your proper answer. Now, when you make a proper answer, the proper answer should focus on two things. Number one, issue, and number two, why. And number three, action. That is the proper answer. Issue and why will give you 1 mark. The action will give you 1 mark. This is exactly what I demonstrated when I was writing the self-review answer and when I was writing the intended user answer. Is everyone getting some clarity on how we went through ASP for 7 marks? Has that really helped you? And you need to continue the ASP to Viper, from Viper to Adder. So when you are reading Viper and Adder, what will you do? You will first extract points, make up your answer plan, then make a proper answer, issue, why, action. And did you see how much time I spent on why? Why was more than the issue. Issue was just 1 line. Issue was just 1 line, but the why was like 1.5, 2 lines. Yes, if you correctly identify an issue, you will get half a mark. But if you explain why it is an issue, you will get an extra half a mark. But try to realize the importance of this extra half a mark. They can accumulate and cause a failure in the paper. All these half a mark accumulates and the student flunk at 47. All these half a mark accumulate and the student flunk at 48. You need to imagine how many half a mark we lose in the paper. And all these half a mark keep accumulating and they become in aggregation. They become in aggregation of failure. So is everyone sound on ethical and professional issues? I'm exiting from this topic because I need to touch time on quality control issues, which is yet another very important area. Just to a recap, final recap. Is everyone sound on what is an ethical issue, and is everyone sound on what is a professional issue? Anything which relates with the work of the auditor, right? And you think something has been performed wrong in that work. Now see, the intended user became a professional issue because we thought that there might be a exposure on the auditor. So we converted the intended user to a professional issue. And we then converted and we then converted it down to the action. So is everyone sound on ethical issues and professional issues? You need to understand there's a constraint of time in these webinars, and you just need to go through each topic within the time available, right? So within the time constraint, I've tried focusing on the ethical side and the professional side. Just try to give you a drill down of a case as you need to continue with Viper and you need to continue with ADA, because I need to still connect this case with quality, and I need to tell you what quality means, what you think about when you're answering a question with quality in exam paper, because that is another concerned area for student. And probably at the end of the session, you will have a very clarity on ethical issues, a clarity on professional issues, and clarity on the quality control issues. Yes, exactly, Afika Zedi. That is perfectly right. Assuming management responsibility means that the auditor is performing the auditor a management responsibility. Okay, is everyone sound? I'm taking a break for 10 minutes again, and post break, the question will change. We'll be taking account of the September 18 question, because we need to focus on quality control, which is another very confusing parameter. Please drop your feedback for this 1 hour uh, as to how the session has been overall so far, and how has the session benefited you so far in terms of understanding the ethical and professional perspective. And I hope you understand the way of presenting the answer, which is very, very important, because a lot of times the students are so confused about how to present the answer, and they're so much confused about uh, linking everything to professional. So when there is professional, it will be naturally extracted. If there is no professional, you cannot extract it from the case study, right? So I'll be looking forward to your feedback during the break about the overall session so far, and about the overall clarity this session has brought to you so far in terms of this very, very exam important topic. And I'll be continuing after 10 minutes, approximately 10 minutes, to start on with my last leg of this day 4. And I'll be sharing this Word file I'm using once I end the webinar on all the WhatsApp group which have been maintained for this particular webinar. I think within the break, if you can just go through the September 18 question, which is this one. Question number 3B of the September 18 exams, this one. If you can just read through this during the break, so I can just extract uh, a good mindset on this topic. Okay, we're taking a break, and approximately for 10 minutes. So I'll be back into the live session at 8:05 p.m. Pakistan Standard Time, and it's a 10 minutes break. So please refresh yourself and don't miss the last part, because the last part will just open things up for you in terms of quality and what's the difference between professional and quality, because a lot of questions have come into the session asking for the differences between quality and professional. So I need to make a clarity on that as well. And there was a very interesting question which came during the session, which I thought to answer now. I hope the student who raised the question is giving the first attempt to AAA, because if you're repeating AAA and you're raising such a question, that's very alarming. The student was asking that in the AAA paper, are we the internal auditor or we are the external auditor? That is really amazing that under 1 month from your exam, you really don't know who you are in the AAA paper. The AAA paper focus on external audit, right? It is an external audit paper. It is a paper which connects with the audit firm. It is a paper which connects with the external auditor. How can you be the internal auditor in the AAA paper unless and until a specific question comes on internal audit, right? So please don't raise such a question which brings doubt on your ability for the AAA exams in March. You need to be very focused on clarity. If you are making such questions at this point in time, that really brings in doubt about your preparation towards the exams in March 2020. I hope the student question has been answered. Are we internal auditor or are we the external auditor? Okay, off to a break. and just taken an extra minute. So probably I'll just be back into the session at 8:05, or might be a minute more than 8:05. Take a break, relax yourself, and come back drilling with the quality control issues. And please keep dropping the feedback of the overall session so far, the day 4, because that will be really important for me to evaluate what insights have you got from the session today. So please take time out and drop the feedback in the chat box. Hello and assalamu alaikum, and welcome back to the last leg of the day 4 session, which is on ethical and professional issues. Now, just prior to the break and so far into the session, I have focused on defining the ethical and professional issues. We started the session today by first focusing on the ethical side, particularly the management threat and the safeguards, particularly the listed company and the non-listed company, and then how important is it to explain why it is a threat in the exam paper. I did focus on the article, which is the exam technique article part 1, which is highly encourageable for all of you to read. And I did emphasize that for the safety side, at least read the chapter from the textbook when you're preparing yourself for ethics. Now, we did focus on the professional issues. What basically are the professional issues? Anything which you think is wrong in the way the audit has been performed, you need to justify to the examiner why it is wrong and what impact it will have on the audit. So professional issues can be at any stage of the audit. Professional issues can be at the stage of accepting a client, can be at the stage of planning a client, can be at the stage of gathering evidence. So there might be something wrong when you are gathering evidence. There might be something wrong when you are planning the audit, or there might be something wrong when you are accepting a client. So, professional issue can be a concern factor at any stage of the audit. But if you know the fundamentals of planning, accepting, gathering evidence, and you think something is wrong, you will criticize it and you will tell why it is wrong to score your marks, and then you will be writing an action for that wrong thing. Now, my previous webinars, particularly in September 19 and in June 19 and in March 19, has again focused a lot on ethical and professional issues, not just ethical and professional issues, even the quality control issues. So with this webinar, you can make use of at least the 3 previous webinars which are recommended on your screen, so to have a better idea about ethical and professional issues. Okay, now I'm focusing on the last aspect, which is basically the quality control issue. Okay, I'm taking back on the Word file and taking account of the September 18 question. Okay, now for the final aspect, to utilize, let's start on with the quality control issues. That is very, very important that when you see this word quality control issues in exam paper, and you get a question which either asks you two things. There is one question which asks you, comment on the quality of the audit, discussing the ethical, professional, and quality control issues. Discussing the ethical, professional, and the quality control issues, and recommend actions. That's one question. The second question which comes in is much shorter than this. It simply asks you, comment on the quality of the audit, discussing professional and quality control issues. Discussing professional and quality control issue, and recommendations. So I've given you examples of both, right? One question is asking, comment on the quality of the audit here. The other is also asking the same thing. But the first question is asking ethical, professional, and quality, all three. The next is asking only professional and quality. The marking scheme will remain the same. That is, you will get 1 mark per issue. whatever the issue is, whether it is a quality control issue or whether it is a professional issue or whether it is a ethical issue, whatever the issue is, you will get 1 mark, and you will get 1 mark per action, whatever you write in that context. Okay, now let's find the situation, right? Okay, the screen and the voice both are working perfectly. So if anyone is having a concern with screen and voice, please, that needs to be sorted at your end, and you need to exit and enter back again. I think currently the screen and the voice both are going perfectly fine. Okay, now let's do an exercise. You all know ethical issues, right? And you all know professional issues. Now, you first of all need to understand that there is a connection of ethics with quality. Because if ethics is compromised, then again the quality is compromised. So first try to understand some basics before I give you the larger picture. You all believe there is an element known as an ethical issue. And the ethical issue is the one which compromise the independence, or which compromise the objectivity of the auditor. Now, when there is an compromisation of independence, do you believe when independence is compromised, it will have an impact on the quality of audit? Is that true? Quick answers. I need you to be more uh, alert in the last 40 minutes and respond to questions as quickly as possible so that we can complete off this topic within the stipulated time. Okay, next, professional issues. If something was done wrong by the auditor, something was done wrong by the auditor in the process of audit, which is the definition of the professional issue, right? If something was done wrong by the auditor in the process of audit, be at any stage, then do you believe this will also compromise the quality? It will also compromise the quality of the audit. So there is a connection, right, between ethical issues and the impact on the quality. There is a connection between a professional issue and the quality of the audit. Is everyone clear and sound on this connection? And I think this is something very logical. This is something very natural, right? So if there is a ethical issue, eventually will compromise the quality. If there is a professional issue, like something was done wrong by the auditor didn't plan the audit, it will compromise the quality. Auditor gathered insufficient audit evidence, will compromise the quality. Or auditor accepted a client which was a very bad client, and it will bring so many issues on you later, will compromise the quality of audit. So professional issues can be at any stage of audit, right? But can eventually impact the quality of the audit. Now, do you believe quality is a concern factor for the audit firm? Quality is a concern factor for any audit firm, and quality is basically an uh, output of inputs. Quality is basically an output of inputs. Which inputs? Ethical inputs, professional inputs. If audit firm compromise ethics, thus compromise quality. If audit firm compromise professional, thus compromise quality. So do you believe ethics and professional is like the inputs of quality? True? False? Quick answers. Ethics and professional are components, are inputs of quality. True? False? Is clear? Now, in an exam paper, what are we doing? The case has ethical issues, right? The case has professional issues, and you need to comment on the quality. Is that not what the examiner is saying in my both questions? See the questions on your screen, right? Both the question says comment on the quality, comment on the quality. Now, that is a very big problem. When the student starts to write an answer, for example, this is the weak student answer, a weak student answer. And the weak student starts to write an answer in the exam paper. He will say, there is a self, okay, just give me a minute. Need to work on some technical issues, and I'll be back live in 1 minute. Okay, resuming back, right? So if there is a weak student answer, right? When a weak student is writing an answer on quality, and he says there is a self review threat because the there is a self review threat because the audit firm is offering audit services along with non audit services, audit services along with non audit services. Thus, the quality of the audit will compromise. Second, the student says, due to reliance on the financial due to the reliance uh, due to the reliance on the audited financial statements by the bank, there is an exposure to liability which compromise the quality of audit. right? So for every issue in the exam, when you're writing an issue in the exam paper, whether it is an ethical issue or whether it is a professional issue, I'm taking both these examples from my last question I did prior to the break, which was ask company. So you cannot just keep writing thus the quality of the audit is compromised every time you write an issue. So you write a self-review thread and you say thus the quality is compromised, or you write the professional issue like an exposure to liability and you say which compromise the quality of the audit. This is not the right way to answer the question that you keep repeating thus the quality is compromised. So when you know that ethics and professional are the inputs of quality and they compromise the quality, you cannot just keep writing them every possible time after the end of an ethical issue or a professional issue. So that's totally a wrong way to present the answer. So this is totally a wrong way to present an answer. This is not the way you should be answering the question. Okay, so this is a weak student answer, right? And when you look at the weak student answer, so you think that a weak student answer is the one which keeps giving thus the quality is compromised. So that's not the best way to answer a question that the quality of the audit will compromise or the quality of audit will compromise. Is that clear to all of you? Now let's find what is a strong student answer. When the question says comment on the quality and there are ethical issues in the question, there are professional issues in the question, but how to comment on the quality? What's the best way to comment on the quality of a given situation? I need some quick answers from all of you, right? Number one, is everyone clear that ethical and professional issues has a correlation with quality? True, right? Ethical and professional issues has a correlation with quality? True. But is it the right way that I keep after every issue I keep telling thus the quality is compromised, thus the quality is compromised? Is that the right way to comment on the quality? No, that is not the right way to comment on the quality. So let's find what's the best way to comment on the quality. Okay, let's take down to the last exercise then, and let's find in the answer how you are putting the comment on the quality. Okay, let's find the best way to comment on the quality when the question specifically asks for it. Ask for it, right? So what's the best way to comment on the quality when the question specifically asks for it? Now for that, you should know something. First of all, you should know the elements of quality control, elements of quality for an audit firm. And you go to the exam hall without the knowledge, without the knowledge of the quality control standard. How would you know? How would you know which element will compromise the quality? You will start to link every ethical issue with quality. You will start to link every professional issue with quality because you have not gone through the quality control standards. Are quality control standards part of your syllabus? Should you know these quality control standards? Should you know the elements of the quality control standards? Then only you can link them down, right? Now, I hope you know that the your examiner has written an article which is basically on uh, the quality control, and I've been referring to that in my previous webinars. right? I hope all of you know the 6 elements of the quality control, right? And the 6 elements of the quality control is given in the examiner article, which is on quality control. You can download this article. It is right here. Right, you can see this article, the very first one, audit quality, a perpetual current issue. Now, if you download this article will tell you what are elements of the quality. And if you know the elements of the quality, then only you can link the elements of a quality to a case study. So not every issue will compromise the quality. Is that right? Not every issue will compromise the quality. There have to be some specific issues in the case study which will only compromise the quality. Now, which are those specific issues? The one given in the quality control standard. So what's the source of the comment on the quality? The source of the comment on the quality is the quality control standard, right? Now, if you download this article, the article will tell you there are 6 important elements of quality. I'm just writing them down on my Word file, and you can explore the article. 6 elements of quality. Number 1, leadership. Number 2, ethics. Number 3, acceptance of the engagement or continuation continuation. Number 4th, human resources. Number 5th, engagement performance. And number 6th, monitoring. Now, from an examination point of view, what exactly connects to the case? The case connects with the first 5 because monitoring is basically the first paragraph of the case study. When you read the case study, the first paragraph will say you are performing an engagement quality control review. So the case starts with monitoring. You are performing the engagement quality control review, right? So this one, this last one, right? Monitoring. The monitoring as an element is not something to be linked to a case study because the case will open with that you are performing an engagement quality control review, right? So monitoring is not an element you should remember for exam paper. Which elements you should remember for exam paper? The first 5. This 5. You should remember these 5 elements from your examination point of view. Leadership 1, ethics 2, acceptance 3, human resource 4th, and engagement performance 5. So the first 5 elements on your screen. Right? So now when you start to solve a question, there might be so many ethical issues in the case. Now, you cannot just say a self-review thread thus compromise the quality, a self-interest thread thus compromise the quality, a management thread thus compromise the quality, a intimidation thread thus compromise the quality. That will be a very childish way of presenting the answer. So again, not you cannot just link every ethical issue with quality, even though ethics is a quality element here. But you need to have a comprehensive conclusion. You can give a conclusion at the end of your answer, or you can sum up your answer at the end, rather than for every issue you keep saying thus the quality is compromised, even for ethics, right? Because there might be so many ethical issues in the case, and for every ethical issue you start writing thus the quality is compromised. No, that's not the case. So how you're going about it, let's do an exercise on it. When you start the side of ethics, the quality, sorry, and you start to write the answer. Leadership, number one, and leadership is basically any act of a partner, any act of an engagement partner. And you see, there is an act of an engagement partner which is wrong in the case study. So if the partner is doing something wrong, or if you think there is a problem relating to the engagement partner, the action of the engagement partner, or the working of the engagement partner, or the way the engagement partner is responding in the case study is not the right way, then you will say, okay, this is a parameter of leadership. The leadership is not demonstrating the right behavior, and leadership is an element of quality, thus compromise quality. I'll just be drafting that with you so that you have an idea about how to go down it. For example, I think there was a past paper question which did had that there was no engagement meeting. There was no engagement meeting at the start of the audit. Now we know the engagement meeting is a very important meeting which takes place at the start of the audit, and the engagement partner is responsible for the for the engagement meeting. So if okay, I'm just stopping for a minute and two again because there is still the technical problem. The screen is still lagging behind. So just give me a minute and two for this issue to be rectified, and I'll see you back into the live session. Right? Just wait for 2 to 3 minutes, and any time which has been compromised because of this technical issue will be compensated. Right? So the session will stretch beyond 9 p.m. Till the time this topic planned comes to an end. Okay, hello and assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to the live session. There were some technical issues for which reason we need to exit out of the webinar and then join in again. This webinar will continue and it will not be ending at 9 p.m., which is the official ending time. Probably will end around 9:20, 9:25 p.m. just to compensate for the time lost due to the technical glitches. Okay, I'm back live and just now keep focus on the discussion we were having on the quality control issues. So when a question asks you comment on the quality of the audit, you need to know the parameters of quality, which is given in the quality control standards. Now we were discussing those parameters of the quality control standards, that the parameters of quality control standards are basically leadership, ethics, acceptance of the engagement, human resource, and engagement performance. We're not worried about monitoring because uh, the question is basically starts with you are conducting an engagement quality control review. So monitoring is not an element we are focused on. Now, leadership. What exactly leadership means? Leadership means the partner. Now, if there is any issue with the partner in the case study, because you're concerned with the engagement partner in the case, right? Leadership is the engagement partner. So if there is any issue surrounding the engagement partner, then again, that is a concerned factor. If the engagement partner is doing something wrong, if there is something of an issue with the engagement partner, then obviously that is an element of leadership. Now, for example, I was giving you an example that there was no engagement meeting at the start of the audit. Now, engagement meeting is a planning meeting, and for the planning meeting, the partner is responsible. If there was no engagement meeting at the start of the audit, that means the planning was not performed, or perhaps the audit has started without planning. Now, how would you convert this into an issue and then connect it with the element of quality? How would you connect it with leadership? See, how would you be answering a question? Now, if I am taking this as an example, there was no engagement meeting at the start of the audit, and I convert this into a proper answer, I would say due to no engagement meeting, due to no engagement meeting, right? Because due to no engagement meeting, okay, one thing is appropriate, right? What I can do is that the content I need to write on this screen, I'm not writing any content on the screen. I hope you can see, you can hear my voice clearly, right? Is that true? Okay, then just focus on listening to me. Just focus on listening to me. Don't focus on the screen currently, right? I'm not putting anything on the screen. Just listen to me and keep responding to me. And we try to conclude things down. And let's see if this can be compensated tomorrow, right? Let's focus on. So all of you are clear that you should know the elements of quality, the 6 elements of quality. Give me quick answers so I know you are interacting and you are getting my voice, right? Okay, you all know the 6 elements of quality. Okay, that's good. Now, when you're reading a case and you think in a case study there is an issue which links with the element of a quality, then you will automatically comment on the quality. Now, if there is a problem with the partner, so you will say because there was no engagement meeting, that means the planning has not been performed, and because the planning has not been performed, that means the audit has started without planning. Now that is an issue, right? Now, once you define the issue and you say, okay, because there was no planning meeting, and because of no planning meeting, the audit has started without planning. That means we have no idea of the risky areas. Is that clear? Now, you're just defining the issue because there was no engagement meeting. So you're just explaining upon the issue. But then you will say that planning is the responsibility of the partner. Planning is the responsibility of the partner, and partner is the leadership. Partner demonstrates the leadership. Partner is the leader for the engagement. Thus, the leadership element of the quality has been compromised. Thus, the leadership element of the quality has been compromised. See how you connected that. So you first thought that because there was no planning meeting, and because there was no planning meeting, that means the audit has started without planning. And if we start audit without planning, that's a big issue. But then you concluded that planning is the responsibility of the partner, and that means the partner has not done the right thing. Thus, the element of leadership has been compromised, or the quality of the leader, or the quality of the leadership has compromised. So leadership is an element, right? And if the examiner finds the word leadership in your answer, that is very good. And if the examiner sees that you connected the leadership with quality, that's very good. Now, for example, um, the junior worked on a going concern area. Do you all believe this is an issue? The junior worked on the going concern area, right? So if the junior worked on a going concern area, then what is the problem? The problem is that because the junior worked on the going concern area, that means he does not have the necessary skills to work on the subjective area. And do you all believe that the evidence gathered by the junior will not be sufficient? The evidence gathered by the junior is will not be sufficient. The evidence gathered by the junior will not be sufficient, right? So now this is an issue, right? Now with the issue, what you need to do is you need to connect this with the human resource. That means the junior is working on a going concern area. That means that the team management was not good, or the formation of the team was not good. So that is the element of a human resource, right? That means when the team was decided, the team was wrongly decided. How can you give a critical area to a junior? So you will say the element of the human resource has been compromised. So you will try to connect this with the human resource. So human resource means the team, right? And the work allocation also means the team. So team, any factor of the team, any work of any element of the work allocation, any element of the junior working on a risky area will all fall under human resources, right? So the human resource element will become a question mark. So when you are attempting a question which says comment on the quality, you need to find, is there anything in the case study which connects with leadership? Is there anything in the case study which connects with ethics? Is there anything in the case study which connects with human resources? And you try to connect that issue with the element of quality, and then say, thus the quality is compromised. So the connection is important. Is everyone getting that point? So you identify an issue number one, and with the issue, you connect it with quality control. The moment you connect it with quality control, that will become a quality control problem, or that is an area where the quality will be compromised. So you need to learn connection. That is the only extra thing you are doing in a question on quality. Is that clear to all of you? If you start building up the connection with the element of quality, that is an extra step you have to do in a question on quality. And if you start to do that, automatically you are commenting on the quality. Right now, just a minute, and I'm going towards the winding up of the session. Okay, now what I am doing is that the session we had today, I'm just trying to wrap up the session today. We had a session on ethical and professional issues. Let's keep it to professional issues, right? Let's not be worried about the quality control issue. What I will do is, because there are some technical glitches today, so when I start the day 5 tomorrow, listen that very carefully, right? When I start the day 5 tomorrow, the day 5 will start at the standard time 6 p.m. the Pakistan standard time, but it will not end at 9 p.m. tomorrow. It will probably end by like 9:45, right? The extra 45 minutes I will be giving to the day 4. I'll start the day 5 tomorrow first with the quality control issues. Is that clear? So I'll first start with the session with the quality control issues, and I'll demonstrate a proper question to you that how you connect the quality control elements, and then I'll take the step towards audit reporting. So the session tomorrow will be from 6 p.m. but will end at 9:45 p.m., right? And in the first 45 minutes, I'll do the quality control and I'll take a break. And then post break, I'll start on with audit reporting. Is that clear to all of you? It might be 9:30 to 9:45, not exactly 9:45, but do remember the session tomorrow will be extended because of the technical glitches today. But please give me one confidence before I end the session today. Are you all clear on the ethical issues and how to go about with it? And are you all clear on the professional issues we discussed? And the 6 elements of quality. Have you got the 6 elements of quality during the technical glitches? Did you got the 6 elements of quality? Will you remember that for the session tomorrow? Because I will only apply that to a case study and I will only tell you how you comment on the quality. So the only one thing which we will do in the extra 30 to 40 minutes tomorrow is basically comment on the quality. Please ensure when you come for the session tomorrow, you have done September 18 question number 2B, because that will be the focal point of the session tomorrow. So the session starts tomorrow at 6 p.m. and will run up to approximately 9:30 p.m. An extra half an hour to compensate the technical glitches today, right? So is that clear? The time schemes for tomorrow, an extra 30 minutes for the glitches we had today. And in the extra 30 minutes, I will first start on with the quality control issues and I'll take a break and we'll start on with reporting, right? Please absorb what was done today. Please go through what was done today, and please ensure that you have revised the 6 elements of quality for the session tomorrow, and you have done the September 18 question number 2B. Please ensure that has been done at least for the session tomorrow, which is right here, this one. I'll be starting my session tomorrow with question number 3B for September 18 right from here, and I will be spending time from 6 to 6:40 approximately on this area. I'll wrap up it and then I'll start on with reporting. So the session tomorrow will end at 9:30 p.m. Right? So this day 4 video will be put up along with the day 4 Word file, and you can go through this at the end of the session today. Okay, the final recap. We are meeting tomorrow with 2 agendas then, day 4 remaining and day 5 in full. And I hope you had a good session today apart from the technical glitches. Minus the technical glitches, you must have learned something good from the session today, right? So I cannot have any control over the technical glitches, because when you are conducting this webinar at an international scale, these technical glitches can happen, right? And this is for the first time it's happening in this webinar and even in the previous webinar. So that one is acceptable. So I hope apart from those glitches minus, the session was good and the session has given you some insights about how you should be preparing for the topic ethical and professional issues, right? Please revise things up, go through the article on ethics, go through the article on quality control, go through the article on acceptance decision, and I'll be doing an exercise on quality only tomorrow, and then moving towards audit reporting, right? So the quality which was affected in the end of the session will be uh, overcome tomorrow, right? So I'll be taking the action tomorrow of the issue today. I hope that's clear to all of you. And I'll see you live tomorrow at the 6 p.m. Pakistan Standard Time, which is the official start of the fifth and the final day of the webinar, with an extra 30 minutes to compensate. Okay, it's time to say you goodbye. Have a nice day. Please keep dropping your feedback at the end of the session, even minus the technical glitches. And I'll see you live tomorrow for the fifth and the final day of the AAA webinar for March 2020 exams. I am Kashif Kamran, and these webinars are being organized by ACCA Pakistan. Goodbye and Allah Hafiz.